Within the structure of a long-standing institution, for an individual to embody the core values of the nation is not only an honor, but also a form of systemic pressure. Princess Anne and King Charles, two pillars of traditional order, have long been regarded as the perfect custodians of the strictest rules. Yet behind the quietude of ceremonial rituals, there appear to be undercurrents of emotion and history that time cannot erase. Could there be an invisible boundary gradually fading? Are the secrets kept for decades truly shadows? Or are they the missing pieces needed to decode the true essence of the resilience we continue to witness? We will not chase rumors. Instead, we will analyze the interactions between individuals within a system governed by age-old conventions. One of the most noteworthy aspects is the relationship between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla. On television, the world sees a harmonious blend of etiquette. However, from a systems psychology perspective, this harmony seems to lack a genuine emotional connection. A static distance exists between them. This isn't a direct conflict, but rather the presence of historical boundaries that have never been bridged. This estrangement is not a random occurrence. It seems to be the inevitable result of a series of events that unfolded decades ago when concepts of duty and affection began to intersect, creating complex variables. To understand reality, we must go back to a time when the old order still reigned supreme. Before becoming part of the power structure, Camilla was associated with Andrew Parker Bowles, a figure with a particularly deep connection to Princess Anne. Here we see a hypothesis of personal sacrifice in the face of systemic barriers. Princess Anne and Andrew once shared a genuine connection. But at the time, differences in faith and the strict rules of the church created an insurmountable wall between them. It's not just a story of two individuals, it's a clash between the yearning for freedom and institutional order. Princess Anne's choice of Andrew as godfather for her daughter Zara demonstrates a timeless appreciation, a bond enduring despite social labels. The complexity intensifies as timelines intertwine, forcing each person to follow a different path. King Charles, then a young prince, entered Camilla's life. An attraction based on calmness and understanding blossomed, but once again the system spoke up. Standards of suitability, family expectations, and military service created a fateful silence. When Charles returned, the old picture had been replaced by a new reality, the marriage of Camilla and Andrew. A cycle of regret and repressed emotions was formed. Could it be that these very knots have created a psychological legacy that influences how members of the royal family interact with each other to this day? Every system operates on a balance between individual ego and collective expectations. When personal emotions are forced to give way to symbolic values, what happens to the truths behind them? What do you think of this hypothesis? Were the strict rules of the past tools for protecting stability, or are they the very source of the silent rifts we are seeing? Time may fade memories, but within the structure of a symbolic family, it often deepens underlying bonds. Princess Anne, after establishing her own path with rigorous royal duties, maintained an invisible but enduring connection with Andrew Parker Bowles. Here we face an intriguing variable. When Camilla entered her formal marriage to King Charles, a complex web of relationships was formed. The woman at the center of the current system had once been intimately connected to both Anne's confidant and her brother. From a systems analysis perspective, this is not simply a love story, but an overlapping of social roles, creating significant psychological pressure on the stability of internal relationships. Princess Anne has always been considered the embodiment of the traditional model, where devotion, order, and adherence to rules are never allowed to be shaken. For a mindset that values consistency so highly, the appearance of Camilla is not just an addition to the family, but a sign of disruptive change. Could it be that in the mind of a heritage guardian, Camilla's presence also evokes the most turbulent periods of the royal family? This contrast isn't an open war, but rather a difference between two sets of values, one representing absolute steadfastness to the past and the other symbolizing adaptation and restructuring after setbacks. For decades, this quietude has been maintained as a shield protecting the public image. However, as roles within the palace begin to be redefined, the cracks in this relationship are gradually becoming apparent. Respect in the royal world is never a free gift. It's a currency that must be accumulated over time and through trials. Their interactions, described as minimal politeness, are in fact a systemic defense mechanism. There are no direct confrontations, no harsh words, only carefully calculated distances. For Anne, acceptance seems like a rigorous verification process. Can an individual truly integrate into the system if they have been a disruptive force in the past? Camilla, in her position, understood that entering an established structure was a journey fraught with prejudice. Princess Anne's strength and assertiveness mirrored the expectations the system placed upon her. In her silent struggle for acceptance, the story wasn't just about who was right and who was wrong, but about how to reconcile old wounds into a shared future. We have journeyed through layers of time, from the harsh rules of faith to the intricate web of personal relationships. Behind the diplomatic smiles and formal ceremonies lies a complex tapestry of sacrifice, responsibility, and emotions never officially named. In a system that values stability, like the monarchy, do forgiveness and acceptance truly exist, or is it all just a perfect arrangement to maintain the survival of a symbol? And if you were in their position, would you choose to uphold old principles or open yourself to a new beginning fraught with uncertainty? In any hierarchy, recognition comes not from words, but from action. Camilla, in her quest for a legitimate place, embarked on what we might call a demonstration of duty. Instead of merely appearing as a symbol alongside King Charles, she became deeply involved in charitable structures and community missions. Under the watchful eye of Princess Anne, who considered devotion the sole measure, a subtle shift occurred. As instinctive resistance subsided, it was replaced by professional recognition. However, we need to analyze carefully. Does this recognition equate to warmth? The answer seems to lie in the gap between two different worldviews. Here we see an implicit dialogue between two schools of thought. Princess Anne, the silence of the rock. She represents the classic royal mindset where duty is performed quietly, without the need for praise and completely detached from the media spotlight. Camilla, modern adaptation. Entering the system from the outside, she understands that the existence of the monarchy in the 21st century requires a bridge connecting with the public through understanding and positive communication. This difference didn't create enemies, but it created two parallel paths that would never intersect. For Anne, the crown was an eternal burden. For Camilla, it was a journey of constant learning. The moment King Charles officially ascended the throne was also the moment the established standards were put to the test. In private meetings behind the palace curtains, Princess Anne played the role of guardian of the standards. Without harsh words, Anne posed a fundamental question: can the devotion of a spouse be measured by time or by genuine transformation? This was not a personal attack, but a test of loyalty to the institution. For someone who had dedicated her life to unconditional service like Anne, the level of devotion was a very high threshold that not everyone could easily cross. As the system sought to stabilize after the upheavals, a new light emerged, altering the entire distribution of energy within the palace. Catherine, Princess of Wales. If Camilla represented the effort to adapt, Catherine embodied a natural harmony. The Princess of Wales not only received public support, but also evoked memories of an ideal role model from the past. From an analysis of her influence, we see a psychological eclipse phenomenon, no matter how hard Camilla tries. Catherine's radiant and amiable presence seems to be casting an invisible shadow. Catherine's rise is not just a story of fame. It is the emergence of a new balancing point in the royal family. Someone who can connect Anne's rigorous values with the approachability of the new generation. We are witnessing a power struggle between positions and influence. While Princess Anne remains a firm moral compass, Camilla faces a new challenge, not only gaining acceptance within the family, but also finding her own voice amidst the powerful allure of the next generation. What is your hypothesis? Is Princess Anne's strictness necessary to uphold the core values of the royal family? Or is the presence of new figures like Catherine the key to this institution's continued existence in the public eye based on analyses of the character and depth of these royal figures? Let's leave comment number 2. If you are impressed with how they are asserting their position and preserving their heritage, leave a comment. Number 5. If you notice other mysteries still waiting to be solved in the future, don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel book now to avoid missing out on the most insightful analyses of the world of power symbols. In a system built on titles, the emergence of a middle-class figure like Catherine, Princess of Wales, created an interesting breakpoint. One theory suggests that Catherine's sophistication stemmed not from her lineage, but from a combination of modern education and self-effort. This creates a paradox. While the world admired Catherine's approachability within the confines of the ancient walls, she was a challenge to established norms. Could the underlying distance between Camilla and Catherine not be merely personal prejudice, but rather a resistance from an old order to a model of popular monarchy? Catherine represents a future where public support is the true measure of power, something Camilla, no matter how hard she tries, always faces obstacles from the past. Here we see two contrasting journeys. Camilla's journey, a journey of redemption and perseverance over decades to gradually gain acceptance. Catherine's journey, an almost immediate explosion of faith and love. This contrast created systemic pressure on the role of the queen consort. While Camilla relied on experience and perseverance to assert her position, Catherine used soft power, kindness, and modern style to become the soul of the new era. It was a silent competition where every step, every smile was a message about who would truly redefine the image of the royal family in the public eye. Amidst the undercurrents of fame and influence, Princess Anne remained a guiding landmark. As tensions among the female members of the family showed signs of escalating, Anne took what analysts called asserting priorities. Instead of engaging in debates about media image, Anne focused on strengthening the crown's power structure. She chose to act quietly but decisively, prioritizing core tasks that she believed were essential to the institution's survival. Her actions were not merely fulfilling her duty, but a message to both Camilla and Catherine that glamour may come and go, but responsibility to the crown is constant. Our investigation into the hidden corners of the palace has revealed a multifaceted picture: Anne's meticulousness, Camilla's persistent efforts, and Catherine's modern appeal. Three women, three representatives of different periods of history, are together creating a turbulent new chapter for the British monarchy. If you were at the helm, would you prioritize the steadfastness of tradition, like Princess Anne, or the modern adaptability of Catherine? Can Camilla truly overcome the shadow of the past when the standards of the ideal queen are gradually changing with the next generation? And finally, how will Princess Anne's next actions affect the power structure between Camilla and Catherine? Is her silence an acceptance or a warning of impending upheaval? While discussions about the royal family's future continue in London, Princess Anne chooses to appear in a highly symbolic setting: Guernsey Island. This was not merely a diplomatic visit, but a journey into the core of history, where 80 years ago the concepts of freedom and resilience were redefined after the dark years of World War II. From a systemic perspective, Princess Anne's presence at the 80th anniversary of Liberation Day was a strategic move to strengthen the living thread. She represented not only the crown, but also the continuation of a legacy left by Queen Elizabeth II, the royal presence in vital moments for the nation. A remarkable aspect of Princess Anne's approach is her breaking down of ceremonial barriers to connect with personal stories. When she takes the time to listen to the elderly, the last remaining witnesses of the occupation, a historical energy exchange takes place. She doesn't seek glamorous photos for the media. Her attentiveness is a message of recognition. For those who have lived through fear and loss, Anne's presence is like an affirmation that their sacrifices are an integral part of the national fabric. This is how the royal family maintains its legitimacy, not through social media posts, but by being the keepers of the flame for the most important memories. At the solemn church ceremony, Princess Anne's speech carried special weight. Her affirmations of not being forgotten were not merely words of comfort, but a commitment from the institution. In particular, her conveying warm congratulations from King Charles created a resonance effect. We see a well-coordinated mechanism. The king entrusts his faith, and Princess Anne, as the most dedicated executor, translates that faith into practical action. Recalling the hospitality received by King Charles and Queen Camilla a year earlier is also a clever way to unite the royal family members, despite the differences in personal styles we've analyzed earlier. The subsequent journey to Sark Island, a small but historically rich community, further clarifies Anne's philosophy. No community is too small to be forgotten. Her unwavering commitment to this memorial tour, despite the pressures and demanding schedule, demonstrates an ironclad sense of responsibility. It is her way of protecting the crown, by being present where it is most needed at the most meaningful time. Princess Anne's trip to the Channel Islands painted a stark contrast to the media frenzy at the palace. While the world was busy comparing Catherine's modernity with Camilla's efforts to adapt, Anne quietly built bridges between the past and the present. A hypothesis for us to ponder. Could it be that these quiet, historically significant journeys are what truly keep the monarchy standing against the storms of the digital age? In a world changing so rapidly, is Princess Anne's steadfastness to the past an outdated value or an indispensable spiritual anchor for the people? How do you assess the way Princess Anne represented King Charles in these historical events? When a royal visit sheds its rigid ceremonial layers, it becomes a reunion of witnessing souls. In Guernsey and Sark, we see not just a princess on duty, but a memory archive in operation. Personal stories, inherently small compared to the grand narrative of history, are the very atoms that make up the power of the crown in this new era. Perhaps the true value of royalty lies in its ability to transform the dry data of war into vibrant emotions. Let's analyze how the last surviving witnesses passed on their historical genetic code to future generations through Princess Anne. Let's consider the case of Winnie Coe. At age 85, the memory of her first chocolate bar was not simply a taste experience. From a systems analysis perspective, it marked the collapse of an isolated order and the rebirth of hope. In an environment where hunger was used as a tool of control, tasting the sweetness of relief packages was an emotional revolution. The contrast between the fear of receiving candy from an enemy soldier and the pure joy of accepting help from an ally creates a complex psychological structure. Princess Anne, by listening to these details, inadvertently acts as an authenticator of the human values that triumphed in the darkest hour. Another aspect of the heritage preservation system is the ability to reconstruct pain. Sally Roberts' story and the poem extracted from wartime letters are a prime example. Instead of being left to rot in a drawer, these old manuscripts were transformed into a public message before the royal court. This was a mechanism of collective spiritual purification. When the poem was read aloud before Princess Anne, it ceased to be the property of a single family and became part of the national heritage. Royal recognition elevated personal emotions to an enduring spiritual value, reminding us that forgetfulness is a second occupation. Finally, let's analyze Jeff Nicholson's reaction to the princess's unannounced visit. In a world where every royal move is meticulously planned down to the second the 30-minute preparation period seems like a test of authenticity. This surprise removed the barriers of elaborate preparation, leaving behind a purely human encounter. This can be seen as a highly effective visible presence strategy. It shows that royalty doesn't just exist in staged events, but that they are always ready to be present in the reality of the people. Princess Anne's journey through the islands was more than just a celebration of the 80th anniversary of liberation. It was a profound inquiry into the power of memory and the role of gratitude in shaping the future. From the sweetness of chocolate to verses from memory, it all created a symphony of resilience. In the digital age where everything moves so fast, are we losing the ability to listen to the small stories that hold such great value as Princess Anne did? Within an institution where stability is measured in centuries, even the slightest shift in the frequency of appearances and public response signals a profound structural realignment. As Princess Anne continues to reinforce the foundations through sheer endurance, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, begins to occupy the emotional space of the public, a systemic question emerges. Where will Queen Camilla's position lie within this new map of influence? From a strategic analytical perspective, we are witnessing an invisible yet extraordinarily powerful convergence between Anne's steel discipline and Catherine's soft power. This convergence is exerting an invisible pressure on the role of the Queen Consort, compelling the system to recalibrate itself in order to meet the public's increasingly high expectations. A compelling illustration of this soft power was the quiet yet highly symbolic visit by Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, to Guildhall. This was not merely a conventional Holocaust memorial event. It was a lesson in how a modern symbol can connect with humanity's deepest wounds. Catherine's appearance unconfirmed until the very last moment generated a distinct psychology of surprise effect. In the world of media, withholding information is not a flaw, but a deliberate strategy to focus attention on the message rather than the ritual. When Catherine entered the room, the atmosphere stirred not merely because of celebrity, but because of the presence of a guardian of memory. What elevated this visit far beyond a royal obligation was the thread of continuity dating back to 2020. Catherine did not simply meet historical witnesses, she applied her own artistic lens to preserve their faces and souls through the commemorative photographs marking the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Here let us examine a hypothesis. When a member of the royal family personally undertakes the preservation of heritage through art, they are no longer an external observer. Catherine has woven herself into the historical continuum of the witnesses. The reunion at Guildhall was not a diplomatic ritual, but a deeply human encounter. Her body language, eye contact, and gentleness testified to a form of systemic empathy, something no title alone can organically confer. In the solemn chamber of Guildhall, amid candlelight and tear-filled speeches, Catherine stood as a bridge between a painful past and a hopeful future. The photographs she had taken years earlier were displayed once more, but this time they carried a different weight. They were evidence of long-term commitment. This contrast poses a genuine challenge for Queen Camilla. While Camilla relies on experience and formal presence, Catherine is building an empire of trust, grounded in empathy and deep personal connections. Could this mark a turning point, one in which Anne's quiet influence and Catherine's increasingly radiant stature redefine who truly embodies the soul of the monarchy? In a world saturated with noise, silence can sometimes be the most powerful language of all. At the memorial ceremony, Catherine did not choose to place herself at the center of speeches. Instead, she chose empathetic presence. By standing quietly observing and listening to the historical witnesses, Catherine demonstrated a fundamental truth of soft power respect is not built through words, but through the capacity for genuine empathy. Her gaze never left the survivors, those who had emerged from the ashes of history. It was not the curiosity of a detached observer, but the conviction of a guardian of legacy. Beside her, Prince William reinforced an image of continuity and support. They were not standing there merely as members of the royal family. They stood as bridges between a painful past and the future's responsibility to remember. The photographs Catherine took are not simply visual art. They are mechanisms of historical validation reminding us that humanity endures even in the darkest of moments. However, behind those quiet and deeply human moments, another reality is silently taking shape within the structure of the monarchy. Let us pose a future-oriented hypothesis. What happens if the central pillar, King Charles, is no longer there to maintain equilibrium? From a systems analysis perspective, Queen Camilla occupies a position that is heavily dependent on the king's support. Should that variable change, a reconfiguration of power would inevitably follow. In such a scenario, Camilla could face a form of institutional isolation. On one side would stand the public's near-universal admiration for Catherine, a symbol of modern empathy. On the other side stands the quiet authority and unshakable credibility of Princess Anne, the guardian of the monarchy's most exacting traditional values. In such a scenario, Queen Camilla's position would be caught between two powerful vices of influence. Would her years of perseverance be enough to hold her ground without the protection of the crown itself? Or would she gradually be pushed away from the epicenter of power, making room for a new era one in which empathy and tradition are redefined by the Anne-Catherine axis. From Princess Anne's quiet, steady steps to Catherine's presence, charged with soft power, every piece seems to converge toward a future matrix of unpredictable shifts within the monarchy. We are not merely witnessing changes in faces, we are observing a large-scale self-recalibration within a millennia-old institution. How do you assess this shift of focus among the generations of women who hold the monarchy's very soul? Is this a preparation for a new era, or a final effort to uphold values increasingly challenged by time? This content is entirely for reference based on hypotheses and unverified public speculation. Let's discuss it from an objective, analytical perspective. Don't stay silent, engage with me. Press 1 for curiosity and 0 for skepticism. Hit like and subscribe to continue the journey of uncovering the secrets behind the spotlight. See you next time.